Hi, council members. Or commissioners, I guess, in this context.
Are you staying cool, Nicole?
I am. My new apartment actually has central air, so.
Oh, you moved.
I moved. Hi, Chair Tolbert.
New teams, crazy.
I know, it looks so weird. I'm struggling.
And everyone has a different background than usual. Oh no, I guess Mitra's is the same. Never mind.
First the one day.
It was zoomed in close.
Amy goes in.
It's all different.
I like it. You guys look so high tech. I feel like we're in a commercial.
I know.
All right, should we get going? Do we have it? Yep, looks like we do. All right. We'll call the HRA to order. Roll call. Tina?
Brandmoen. Oh, sorry. Brandmoen. Here. Jalali.
Here.
Naker.
Here.
Prince. Tao.
Yeah.
Tolbert.
Here.
Yang.
Here.
Commissioner Prince, are you here? No. 6 present, 1 absent, that being Commissioner Prince. Item number 1, Resolution Public Hearing 21-141, approving and authorizing the sale and conveyance of 47 Douglas Street, approving and authorizing execution of a development agreement, and approving and authorizing expenditures for redevelopment. District 9, Ward 2.
Director Goodman.
Yes, I'm going to throw to Housing Director Shuckman for this item and the next. We'll get through them quickly so that you can hear the remainder of the economic development presentation from last week. So, Director Shuckman.
Thank you. This request is for approval of the sale of 47 Douglas Street, an existing vacant single-family house, and authorization to enter into a development agreement with Historic St. Paul, as well as authorization to spend up to $130,000 in Inspiring Communities funded from CDBG. Staff recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any comments or questions? Councilmember Naker or Commissioner Naker.
Thanks, Chair Tolbert. No questions, just a comment to thank staff. This has been a very, very long process, and I know that especially Director Shuckman and Joe Musaf spent a lot of time working on this with the neighborhood, and I know that the neighborhood has been really looking to see this property redeveloped and with a new family and a new home for a long time. So this is an exciting day.
Great, thank you. And this is a public hearing, and I believe we took all testimony via emails and phone calls. Is that correct, Ms. Sheldon?
That is correct, Chair Tolbert, and we did not receive any comments.
Great. I will take a motion from Commissioner Naker to close the public hearing and approve. Roll call.
Brandmoen.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Commissioner Prince.
Aye.
Here you are. Tao.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Chair Tolbert.
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 2, Resolution Public Hearing 21-142, approval and authorization to sell and convey 1776 Maryland Avenue East, Unit 204, and authorization to waive the 45-day written notice in the HRA disposition policy, District 2, Ward 6.
Director Gooden or Director Shuckman.
Thank you. This request is also due to the great work of Joe Musaf. The request is for approval of the sale of 1776 Maryland, Unit number 204, and waiver of the 45-day written notice policy. This property is a unit in the Hazel Park Heights condominium building. When the condo market stalled during the Great Recession in 2008, the HRA took ownership of 5 of the unsold condo units in this 27-unit building. 3 were subsequently sold to a property management investment firm, and 2 were sold to owner occupants. Unfortunately, in 2018, the HRA retook possession of this unit in question through foreclosure and has owned this, and it's been vacant since that time. We received a request from AOP Holdings, owner of 19 of the 27 units in this building, to purchase Unit 204 for $110,000, and they intend to rent this unit as they do the other 17 units that they own. Given that this purchase price is in line with other recent comparable sales in the building, and the agreement of AOP to enroll the unit in our 4D program and maintain it as affordable for households earning at or below 50% of area median income, staff recommends approval.
Great. Any comments or questions? Motion. This is a public hearing, and we took testimony online and via our phone system, and I will take a motion from Commissioner Yang to close the public hearing and approve. Roll call.
Brenmoen,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Yang,
Aye.
Chair Tolbert.
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 3, SR 21-109 is our economic development update.
Director Goodman, take it away.
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Tolbert and Commissioners. I'm going to turn it over to Economic Development Director Martin Schickel, who has, this is the continuation of a presentation that you saw half of during the organizational committee meeting last week. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Martin so we can get through this and leave time for questions and comments.
Okay, thank you, Director Goodman. And I hope that I have pulled up the slideshow already. I'm trying to go to where we left off. So if you just give me a moment. I estimate we have maybe 15 minutes left at most. And then so we should have plenty of time for questions too. Are you seeing the screen at the moment?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, let me just.
It's on the first page.
Yep. I'm just fast forwarding on my little tiny screen here. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. Now I can see it. Okay, if you recall, we ended the last session with the Neighborhood Star program. And now we are going to talk a little bit about cultural destination areas. Kosar Mohammed was scheduled to present this part of the update. Unfortunately, she is unable to attend this meeting, and so I'm going to take it from here. I also was trying to get Nora
I
to
can
come.
jump in if you want.
Oh, Nora, you are here. Thank you. I was trying to.
Sorry.
Nora. So COSAR has done a lot of the legwork, a lot of the organizing. Has been part and parcel of cultural destination areas in a very big way. And it's unfortunate she can't present, but Nora has also been very, very involved since the cultural destination area program was started. And so I think that Nora is going to just do a fine job, and hopefully everything is going good with COSAR today. So take it away, Nora.
Great. Thanks, Martin, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving us some time on this agenda to continue our topics. So with cultural destination areas, of course, you'll remember this came about with Mayor Carter and his vision really about being able to really see the asset of our cultural diversity in our communities. So not just knowing that we have amazing cultural diversity and that's such a great thing about St. Paul, but actually when you drive around and walk around the communities, that it's visible to anyone that would be in the community, and both to visitors and also to those who live in these places, that they feel lifted up and like that everybody's recognized in the community that we live in. So back in 2018 and 2019 was really when we were kicking this effort off. And we were doing a ton of work at that time, really focused on many of our collaborative partners across the city: Asian Economic Development Association, AEDS, Indigenous Roots, Clues, too many partners to name, but really broad, across the whole city. And some of the efforts that we had were really about marketing and letting people know that these wonderful cultural destination areas exist and that these are places to visit. So for instance, we worked with Visit St. Paul on including our cultural destination areas in their insider's guide and doing a coupon deal with the Chinook Book app. We also focused on capital improvements to cultural destination areas across the city via existing resources like Neighborhood Star as well as Cultural Star. So good amounts of funding going to those targeted geographies that were both creating more job opportunities and improving the building infrastructure in those areas, as well as activities to really see that visible presence of culture, like murals and different types of public art. So really kind of the whole package there, as well as programming and events like we'll be doing with the Chamber. In fact, this summer, which was delayed due to COVID, but we will be working on our Cultural Star grant that went to the Chamber to focus on neighborhood groups having the chance to perform and sell their retail goods in downtown. And last, we did invest some HRA funds as well that were specific to this effort in the amount of $40,000. So we were able to pay Visit St. Paul for their marketing and branding work. And also another thing that was delayed due to COVID, the Congress for New Urbanism, we were able to provide some matching funds in order to have 2 areas have some charrettes and design workshops done with architects and other experts from the Congress for New Urbanism to help District del Sol and Little Mekong further develop plans that they have for their communities. So that's some of the highlights from our past work. Current activity that we're working on right now includes kind of ramping up that 2019 Cultural Star Award and continuing with that with the Chamber, as well as determining how we will utilize an additional $100,000 that was dedicated from the 2021 Cultural Star in order to kind of have those dual goals of activating downtown, as well as promoting neighborhood groups, artists, and entrepreneurs and small business owners to have a presence in downtown, and then likewise draw folks from downtown to those communities to continue that relationship and keep enjoying the restaurants and the art and things like that that they're seeing maybe for the first time when they're downtown. In addition, the East 7th Street Cultural Corridor received a $100,000 NEA Our Town grant. That was an Indigenous Roots as the lead on that. And we will be working with them very closely on the work to develop a cultural district plan in the next year with those grant funds. So really excited about that. And last, we'll be able to continue that Congress for New Urbanism work that was delayed due to COVID with these design support and charrettes for Little Mekong and District del Sol. So at this time, these are the threads that we carry forward. And we're always looking for input and ideas on how to continue the momentum around cultural districts, which really is, of course, a concept that resonates across communities and something that we can really make more of, I think, going forward. So, and I think that might be it for me, and I'll be transitioning now to Andy Hessness to talk about more details on several projects, kind of at a high level, or at a data level, I should say. So Andy, I think I'm turning it over to you.
Before we turn it over, Commissioner Naker does have a question.
Oh,
Thanks,
sure.
Chair.
Commissioner.
Thanks, Chair Tolbert. And sorry if I missed this, Nora. I'm just wondering, I had been in close touch with the economic development team about the downtown CDA in particular, and I haven't heard anything about it until now. And I know COVID got in the way, but I'm just wondering, did you mention the timeline for when that is expected to take shape?
We are working with the chamber now on kind of reshaping the 2019 grant that they had gotten from Cultural Star in $100,000 and really basically incorporating it into a lot of the Activate St. Paul downtown activations that they're working on in partnership with the Downtown Alliance, and thinking of ways to kind of partner up and capitalize on a lot of the activity that's going on through those activities for this summer and fall. But we haven't gotten under contract with them. We're still kind of getting their proposal and hearing more from the chamber about how that will all come together and really be kind of a cohesive whole. So next steps on that in particular will be meeting with the CDA partners in order for them to tap into booking artists and small business owners and entrepreneurs to have booths at different events. And then also working on a marketing plan that would tie in for folks that are downtown to hear more about the cultural destination areas that we are marketing through their presence at these events.
And it's probably not on this, but maybe we could follow up. If you could, do we have a list of where all the currently identified cultural destinations are, just as a reminder?
Yes, I can definitely get you our the map that we've used. It's the dot map, and then we kind of overlay, you know, Rondo, Little Mekong, Little Africa, the East Side, the North End, and Shepherd Davern as our 7 cultural destination areas.
Thank you. Any other questions on this before we move on? No, Mr. Hessenson.
Thank you, Chair Tolbert, Commissioners. Good to be here today. I'll be walking through a couple slides just related to how we track projects and progress. A number of you may be familiar with some of the data we use. We often give update presentations to the council offices using this information, and we're happy to share it with anyone else at a more granular level as we get into if there's more information you'd like about the activities in your ward. So I wanted to start just a little bit of a kind of a definitions level on our project tracking system. So our whole team, project managers, some of our other economic development staff use a common project tracking system. And we have a number of categories that projects are coded into, which really are, in many ways, the guiding way that we frame progress on each of the activities our team is doing. So we have active projects and completed projects as 2 broad categories. Within active projects, we list projects as conceptual. These would be, there's an idea, there's a concept that we've been working on. It's in the sort of that early stage. So we may be engaged with a business, we may be talking to a nonprofit or other organization trying to figure out what their concept is, how do we help them get to the resources they need, be them financial, technical assistance, and other resources of that sort. The next phase is development. Project is in the development phase if all of its city and HRA funding is approved. So that is essentially we've set the city funding. There might be some other funding that the project is working to pull together, but we have sort of committed as a city and an HRA to funding this project and moving it forward. Under construction, the next phase, so this would be a project that is, if it's a development project, a construction project, there's active construction going on. And certain other, Cultural Star and those types of projects, it might be activities where the arts activity has begun or is in progress. For sale, these are used for HRA properties that are going through a sale process. So we're marketing a site for sale, working with potential buyers, could be an RFP, could be a few different ways under a disposition policy, how we're going through that sale process. An ongoing process project would be one more, this is often used for programs or other sort of activities that don't have a defined start and end date. So their engagement with different groups within the city, tables we sit at, some of those types of activities, or a program that has a longer time span and multiple funding cycles. Restructuring is sort of the last category within active projects, and that's a project that had previously been completed and it's run into some bump along the road and we need to work on restructuring. This could be a refinancing, could be other ways that we're working with a business or a previously completed project to get sort of our ongoing relationship with that business and project set up again. So those do often take significant time of our project managers working through credit committee and other sort of phases within our departmental process to get those projects back on track. So a little snapshot of where we are currently within those categories. So right now, our economic development team has 296 active projects. Across those projects, we have a total development cost that's both city HRA and private sources, other government sources, exceeding $828 million of activity. So we are really working at a large scale, and that's certainly an undercount. There are projects that are so early and conceptual, we just don't have an estimate at this stage what the scale of that project is going to be. But that's just to give you a sense of the scale. 84 conceptual stage projects, 91 development stage, 53 construction, 3 in the for sale phase, 60 ongoing, and 5 in that restructuring phase I was mentioning. Within those 53 under construction projects, so these, we definitely know are moving forward, that has a total development cost exceeding $334 million. So that's the development activity that is currently ongoing from the projects on our team. And since 2019, our team has completed 104 projects with a total development cost of $274 million. So you start to see there's a bit of a funnel. We're often have a larger number of conceptual stage, development stage projects going at any given moment in time, and those are funneling down into construction and completion. So these projects take time, and each of these phases has a lot of different components within it. I can pause. Looks like there's a hand raised.
Commissioner Naker.
Thanks, Chair Tolbert. And Mr. Hessness, we talked last time about some of the metrics that the economic development team uses to just gauge progress on its strategy as a whole, but those were all sort of external facing, jobs created, wealth built, that sort of thing, businesses locating here. Do we also check on our own process to make sure that we're, like, for example, how quickly a project is moving from concept phase through working with us and permitting to development to construction and actually opening its doors? And do we note if we're having problems getting projects through, if we lose business as a result? And just, can you talk a little bit more about how we're measuring our own process and customer service?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And as I think about it, one of the challenges in sort of coming up with metrics around something like that is the just absolute breadth of the types of projects that our team members are involved in. We've got everything from major development projects, hundreds of millions of dollars, down to the $20,000 business renovation, and the timescales of those are not very comparable. So we don't have, at this point, a lot of ways that we're sort of tracking those and baselining them against one another, but I think it's a good question for us to think about and kick the tires on, because obviously we do want to make sure that we're providing great customer service, and all of our project managers are working hard to provide that customer service. But as you can tell, I mean, these projects all are time consuming, so we're balancing, juggling a lot of balls at any given moment in time. So just to give a little snapshot about kind of how this lays out geographically, this is a map showing all of the active projects that are currently those 296 I mentioned. I will mention this map. There was a lot of stacking where the dots were right on top of one another. So just to give a sense of how they're located geographically, we have just sort of, they're close to where the project is actually tagged from an address perspective, but they've also been separated slightly just so you can see each of the tags. These will be projects with a specific address. There are projects that are corridor wide or multi-site that might not have a specific address, and those are not depicted on this map. So there are additional projects of that 296 that don't have a dot here on this map, but just wanted to show, we are working across the city, working at all different stages in all the different wards. So this is part of how we track and evaluate where the work is ongoing.
So, Mr. Hessens, just to clarify, this is just a list of current projects happening in the city of St. Paul, not necessarily projects that economic development staff are involved in each of these projects.
No, these are all economic development projects. So the economic development staff are involved in all of the projects on this map right now.
Okay, so are there additional projects that would be happening that DSI would have permits pulled on, larger projects that economic development's not involved in?
That's correct. Yeah, there would be additional projects that are happening in the city. If there hasn't been a PED economic development role, they wouldn't be depicted on this map.
Okay, great.
And then just to kind of wrap things up on this sort of projects and data piece, this is our recently completed projects, those 104 I was mentioning. Again, projects with a specific address, so there's a handful that were not able to be mapped based on the way we put this data together with pinpoints. But we do have projects, and these are in the exact location, so slightly different methodology from a graphical standpoint. So these are at the locations where the projects are located. We didn't separate them, but this showing where those 104 projects that we've completed since 2019 to the present have been located. And with that, if there aren't any questions on the data, I can turn things over to Martin Schickel for the next section.
Martin? You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair Tolbert. Too many buttons to navigate here. So the last part of our presentation is simply going to be highlighting a few specific projects with a little anecdote about each one, representing each of the wards, and some nice pictures. So this is the fun part now, and then we'll be done. So go in order. We'll start with Ward 1. This is Taste of Rondo. You have some before and after pictures. Taste of Rondo opened in July of 2020, and it's owned by Charles and Casara Carter. They spent years working on this labor of love for the Rondo neighborhood. I mean, literally years. And in addition to funding from STAR and the HRA, we helped facilitate a loan from META, one of our nonprofit partners. Ross Courier worked on this project and also worked years on this to help, and actually played a big role in helping facilitate this loan from META, which I think there was a question asked earlier by Commissioner Naker about, is there a standard timeline? Well, you'll see from each of these examples that there is no standard timeline, no matter what the size of the project. This project lived and died multiple times, but it's open now. They survived the pandemic, and certainly we're encouraging all of you to, and all of those watching to visit some of the examples you'll be seeing here. In Ward 2, we have a couple of examples of projects here. On the left, you'll see a before and after picture of the Rose Street Bread Lab. This was part of the Rothskeller renovation. I think a lot of folks are obviously familiar with Kegan Case, same developer. It's the adjacent building, but the Rothskeller also underwent a renovation, and the Rose Street Bread Lab is probably their primary tenant. John Kraus is the owner of this business. He's probably one of the preeminent bakers in the country. I mean, and that's not, I'm not saying that just in hyperbole. He is literally one of the best bakers in the country. And he uses the Bread Lab as a sort of a mentoring opportunity so folks can apprentice there to learn really from the best how to bake. And if any of you have visited his Rose Street Patisserie up on Snelling and Selby, you'll recognize the quality of the products that are produced here. The picture on the right is a picture of a CVZ-funded project in District del Sol, where a community-based artist was selected to replace a 20-year-old faded mural on the pedestrian bridge over Robert Street. This was completed in the fall of 2020. This process actually came about through a community voting process with over 200 participants, and they identified top priorities for the CVZ as business assistance, the gateway public art, which you're seeing a picture of here, and pedestrian improvements. Ward 3, we have a picture of Bap and Chicken. This is a Korean restaurant which opened in July of 2019. Our financial involvement was modest. We provided a $17,000 year-round STAR grant to help pay for the replacement of their faltering HVAC system. Pictured here is John Gleason, who is a St. Paul resident. He's the owner. And although he has a lot of experience working in restaurants throughout the Twin Cities, this is his actually first experience as an owner. This is Ward 4 example of Can Wonderland, fairly well known. Can Wonderland, like most entertainment venues around the city, was absolutely devastated by the COVID restrictions last year. I mean, they were closed for a long, long time. Our live entertainment venue grant program, which was mentioned earlier when we talked about COVID relief, provided much needed funding at a critical time, and I'm happy to report that they have once again reopened. An example in Ward 5 is the Rice-Larpenteur CVZ project. This has been recently completed, actually. Project includes a mill and overlay of the parking lot right at the strip mall that's right at the entry into St. Paul on Rice and Larpenteur. The work included pedestrian islands. We closed 3 curb cuts. We added a community parklet at the corner of Rice and Larpenteur, and of course, it was a large mill and overlay project to sort of fix up a decrepit parking lot. On the picture on the right was an earlier event. It was a 2019 summer block party. That was a community development event at My Thrift parking lot. So it's the same parking lot, obviously before the work was done. And it featured local band from Wilebski's, a jumping castle, a fashion show. There were nearly 600 residents in attendance. And I think one of the harder to quantify benefits of the CVZ projects that have happened around the city is the kind of community process that's typically involved, which you can see a vivid picture of here. These really can help build and improve a neighborhood as much as the physical improvements themselves. It's bringing the folks together to talk about things, to decide on things that has a lot of benefits that aren't quite as visible as the picture on the left. This is Ward 6, Phelan Village CVZ, another CVZ project. We helped provide funding to do pedestrian-friendly improvements to what was otherwise a privately funded project. It includes a new Aldi, a medical office, small retail. The improvements to Rose Avenue, as well as this adjacent community gathering space that's right next to the Aldi store, are the things that the CVZ project helped fund. And then lastly, HRA funding helped the popular Minneapolis ice cream store La Michoacana Purepecha open a second location on East 7th Street. So this is obviously Ward 7. Owner Ricardo Hernandez, who is pictured here up on the upper left, he's an immigrant from Michoacan, Mexico, and he really took a leap of faith to make his dream a reality, bringing his favorite childhood frozen treats to Minnesotans through the experience of these traditional La Michoacana shops. Although this is the last slide in our presentation today, I wanted to talk a little bit and just use it as an example of the work typically involved in bringing what may appear to be fairly straightforward projects to a successful completion. I mean, this goes to the question asked earlier for Mr. Hessness. Some variation of what went on in this particular project, this one project, frankly was true of all the projects I just highlighted. And it shows the skills, the patience, the dedication of the members of the ED team. The whole story of this fantastic neighborhood amenity coming to Dayton's Bluff would take more time than we have remaining, but here's a taste of just what went on in this one project. A previous project with Dayton's Bluff Neighborhood Housing Services to renovate the dilapidated Animal Ark building, which in itself was a complicated project with multiple funding sources, led to the creation of the space that La Michoacana Purépecha ultimately moved into. However, the federal funding source initially identified for this business development project ultimately couldn't be used as it conflicted with requirements related to the original building renovation. So new funding had to be identified as the project was, well underway, and that new funding was identified and ultimately used. And through all of this, the project manager working on this project, who was Angela Reif, worked through the complexities, the twists and turns. She was advocating on behalf of the business and providing reassurances to the owner, and ultimately helped lead them to their successful opening. And this goes on over and over and over again. It's building up the dots on the map you saw earlier. It's helping create the vibrancy and the opportunities for community wealth. And bit by bit, it's helping to create the environment for successful economic development in St. Paul. So with that, thanks for listening. We'll have some delicious ice cream on East 7th Street, and we can take any additional questions you have. Thank you. And I can leave this up or I can take it down, whichever you prefer.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments or? So, Mr. Schickel, I think one thing that would be helpful, at least it's helpful to me because I know it's changed a few times. Do your economic development staff go by project or by area? And I know that's gone back and forth, at least with my time on the council. So when we're looking at projects, how do we know who to talk to or how to tap in these dots? There's, I think, a lot of dots. I suspect, I know I have questions about the ones that are listed in my ward. And I suspect other people do because the dots on the project stuff. How would my colleagues and I check in?
So that's a great question. We generally do assign project managers to geographic areas in the city, and it's roughly based on planning districts. And we actually have a map that maybe Tina can find and put in the chat that actually shows not only the ED project managers that are assigned to each planning district, but also the planners too. So you really have a team there. That being said, it's not hard and fast. Project managers do cross over and work in projects in different wards for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just trying to, staff workload. Sometimes it's based on, earlier iterations of a project. But in general, so for example, I would say Ross Currier is the principal project manager that works in Ward 3 for the most part. Also covers a lot of Ward 2 and Ward 1. And, we can identify a project manager for you to talk to in each of your areas. But you can look at the map, and you can also just contact us, whether it's Tina or myself or Mary Rick. We can find the right person to work with you on any particular project. Or if you have a client that you want to direct somewhere, you can always just go to like I say, Tina, myself, or Mary, and we will make sure that we get them to the ultimate right destination.
Okay. Commissioner Nager.
Thanks, Chair Tolbert, and thanks so much, Mr. Schickel. This is really helpful information. And 2 points. One is just going back to something we talked about when you presented last time. These stories, these pictures, I just think they really help convey to a particular business owner in a variety of different sectors or a variety of different levels of experience how you would get your business dream to happen in St. Paul. And again, looking at the economic development website, it's very text heavy. It's there's a lot of numbers and figures, but I think there's so many ways we can tell our story by using some of these examples, which are really striking. So I hope that as you take away that how to tell our story better from last time we talked, that you consider some of these testimonials and stories as well. And then the second thing I was just going to say and ask about is I think since I've been on the council, I've been asking, how can I as a council member better attract businesses to my ward? It's probably the top thing I hear about from my constituents. We want this particular vacant building filled with X or just filled. And I don't feel like we get utilized by your department the way that we should. I know the mayor is a champion, but there's one of him, there's 7 of us. So we could be 8-folding our ability to reach out and be champions for the city if we better utilized council members. So I just want to see is that something that you're talking about or working toward, or how can we better assist your team?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it's not only about the attraction, but it's the retention side of it. And I know you in particular have done some work with us on, organizing visits to businesses, for example. And we want to be as helpful as we can. And there are examples, I think where we are courting a particular business that maybe we're aware of, and we try and bring the council member, or we try and bring the mayor into that discussion. I think more than anything, it's a lot of this is simply just staff capacity. I mean, at the moment, for our business development work, this kind of outreach work that we're talking about, Mary Rick is the person who does that. That's just a person, very, very busy with many, many things on her plate. So some of it is just, frankly, it's just the team we have to work with, the number of folks we have to work with, and you can see how busy we are just by the examples we've given. And I think sometimes in the area of business outreach and attraction and retention, frankly, takes a back seat at times to an actual project where someone is waiting for a draw to be processed. You have an actual construction thing going on. You're trying to get something closed. I mean, those are always sort of I think, precedence. But point well taken. And I think Mary, who started this position last year, is I think trying to be very aggressive about how to get better organized. And I think utilizing council members where the request is coming from us rather than the other direction is a great idea, and something that we'll work on to do more of.
And just Chair Tolbert, if I could, for a quick follow-up, I completely hear you on the capacity, and I know sometimes we talk about this a lot, like you're almost too busy to make yourself less busy by getting the help. And I would just say, as we're thinking about the budget season, I think we often hear from PED requests for dollars for business development funds, very specific targeted funds, pools of money that require a lot of staff capacity to develop guidelines for and get out the door. But we often don't talk about staff capacity. And I think you should be encouraged to make that ask of us, or let us know what it's going to take. Because I would hate to think that on our assembly line of business development, we're so busy getting the final packaging work done over here that we're not also building the pipeline on the other end. And I know you recognize that, but I think we can be helpful in that regard.
Thank you. Commissioner Prince.
Thank you, Chair Tolbert. I cannot agree more with Commissioner Naker on publicizing these stories, getting them up on our website. And I'm also wondering, I don't see this PowerPoint attached to our agenda today. And I wonder if you would be willing to do that. So if people are watching and they would like to access it, they can do that. And also so we can connect people to it. I think it's been a great presentation. And I also want to say, I have had a good experience with having businesses reach out to me, and then working through Martin's team to get things underway. So when it works great. I'm really thrilled that with a couple of different developers, but a business developer in particular, Georgia Fort, we have moved that project forward with Georgia's hard work, but with great support from Jonathan Riestetter. And I was so grateful that PED also referred Georgia to LISC to become part of their building developer capacity program. So she was able to get an additional sizable grant for her project through that effort. So I think these are incredibly exciting examples. And, I think the other benefit of really telling these stories is the community finding out about them and checking them out right away. So I don't think we can do enough to get the word out about new businesses that we are helping to launch.
Thank you. And I will add, if you are watching, the May 26th board committee has the PowerPoint on it. I had to go pull that one up, and I do agree we should add this to the to this agenda too for people to see. But the May 26th organizational committee on the agenda has the current PowerPoint. Mr. Shakel, one question: what do you think we should be focusing on in terms of our economic development going into the future? Obviously, a lot has changed in the world over the last year. What, in your opinion, as the head of economic development for PED, what do you think the city should be focusing on, and what is our strategy to move on to the new normal, or whatever we're going to call it, the post-vaccine world?
Well, that's a great question and a complicated question too. I think one thing that we should be focusing on, especially coming out of the pandemic, is small business development, community-based development, and not only I think helping the businesses that suffered during the pandemic to get back on their feet, which I think we're not done with, and all of them are going to need some help to kind of kickstart their businesses again. Most of them are just now opening up. But I think also that's the area of sort of work that we can be, I think, do the most sort of community wealth building in, especially in areas of equity, small business development. Obviously, we have some large projects going on that we're going to continue on. For instance, Hams was mentioned earlier, and that's a site we're still continuing to sell the remainder of the buildings. There is the Hafner site. We have some large HRA parcels that we're looking at working on, but I think it's the small entrepreneurs, the smaller businesses that I would like to continue focusing on. And frankly, you'll see from this year's STAR round what I'm talking about. We had a record number of STAR applications this year, far more than we've ever had before. And of course, sadly, the least amount of money we've had in quite some time. And there are so many good projects in that STAR round. And so many projects, frankly, with businesses owned by people of color, smaller businesses, that we're not going to be able to fund with the STAR dollars we have. One idea I have, and I've been thinking about this for the last several years, is that process, the STAR process. We've really done a great job in the last number of years of outreach. I think it's partly why we're seeing so many applications. And frankly, and I think we shared a slide with you earlier, perhaps about the number of businesses that are getting STAR awards that are owned by people of color. We've done a really good job in that regard. And I hate to see projects that are ready to go, that have good applications in place, and we don't have the money to fund them. So one of the things I'm going to focus on in the next year or two is how can we go down this existing list of good projects and get them done? And I think Chair Tolbert, one example, Five Star Cafe was an example of that in your ward, where they didn't get STAR funding because they were below the line, but it's a good project. We figured out how to get that project funded, and the same with a project in Commissioner Naker's ward last year, Papa Legba, same thing. And so I think we should try and do more of those, because that's just staring us in the face, good projects just sitting there waiting to be done.
Yeah, and just on a follow-up on that, so from the small business, the help that they need is in capital improvements, because isn't our STAR limited to capital improvements? Is that the focus, that the small businesses need in helps, or are they needing help with operating costs, or what are you hearing from the small businesses that you think we should focus on?
Well, I think obviously you're right. The STAR projects are capital in nature, but that is typical of many businesses, whether they're startups or not. It's they're building something, they're installing equipment. Although operational capital is something that is needed too. It's not an area that we typically have played a big role in the past. That's generally, I think, a better role for a banker to play. Working capital. And I think working capital was the flavor of the money we provided, obviously, in all the COVID relief we did. I mean, we just gave them money to help pay rent, to help keep employees on board. So I think that was needed then and certainly provided then. But you're right. I think the operational help or technical assistance is another area that sometimes they need help with, are things that we can do more of. But capital projects are still part and parcel of the economic development work we do. And again, if you look, you'll see soon the STAR list coming your way. There are lots and lots of good projects, waiting to open or waiting to expand, but for some assistance with the capital needs that they have.
Commissioner Brennan?
I think just putting a fine point on what you just said, Mr. Schickel, is just, I know that we've talked a lot about how using some of our funding sources can add layers of challenges for businesses. And I appreciate the idea of looking at the funding list, recognizing that there are some that are going to be below the line and maybe not a great match for STAR or one of our other sources. And instead of saying, sorry, you're out of luck, instead figuring out how to connect them with a bank or figuring out how to find other investors to help them move forward with their projects, especially if they're ready enough to apply with us, they're ready to go. And I do hate to see those opportunities missed. And I also think that there are plenty of opportunities or plenty of projects that there is a better fit than the city's available resources that we could be like a concierge or a facilitator to connect those businesses with. So I appreciate hearing you say that. As one thing I just wanted to share. And then the second thing is you shared the parking lot improvement project at the Rice and Larpenteur intersection. And I just wanted to underscore that for my colleagues. That is a project that the city funded with CVZ dollars, fixed ingress and egress, changed lighting, and made the parking lot a safer place due to concerns that we've heard at a community impact statement a few months back. And so there's a very important project that adds vitality, put in a much needed sidewalk in an area that has so many pedestrians, but that's something that the city's identified as an issue and the city proactively went and funded. And I just wanted to draw attention to those. Sometimes we use those to create a safer environment as well. And that has been transformative in many ways in that neighborhood. But again, it was proactively initiated by the city.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not, Director Goodman, do you have any additional comments or?
I'll just close with adding that one of the things that I'm focusing on from an economic development perspective and with Martin and the others as well is coordination with some of our other entities, right? So the greater MSP and the chamber and the port and the county and the St. Paul Downtown Alliance, we all need to be coordinating and leveraging each other's work. We are also now as a region eligible for federal EDA grants, which we've not been eligible for before. And if we can show that coordination and sort of consortium, we will have a better opportunity. Those are grants I'm familiar with and have achieved funding with in the past. And so we're looking at those things, that economic development strategy as a city with all of our economic development entities is something that we're working on together. And I think that can be transformative in our efforts. So I wanted just to add that.
Thank you very much.
And I don't have anything further. I know we're almost out of time. If anyone has any further questions, we're happy to answer. Otherwise, I think we're done.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thanks for everybody joining on a second meeting. We will add that PowerPoint to this agenda. Otherwise, like I said, May 26th work committee. That brings us to the end of the HRA meeting and we will be adjourned. Thank you.